I've got here a blank page. This is basically the Vue app. The only thing that I did is remove the example, and this is how it looks. As you can see, if I go to here, it's a very simple Vue 2 app, as you can see from the way that is mounted. This is Vue 2. So let's just get started. Let me just go here and add here to do, and we can see that this is working. So let's just get started. The first thing that I'm gonna be doing is basically create the create functionality. In order to do that, I'm gonna just go here in the components, and let's just call it to do form. And this is gonna be the component that's gonna be in charge of creating and also editing or updating, however you wanna see that, every single to do item. So let's just go to do form, and to do form, don't ask me again. So a to do is gonna include a couple of things. The first one is gonna be an input, which one let's just go with title, and also some description. And some kind of submit button. Since I'm not doing validation, normally I would have validation in the backend and I wouldn't use the front end. But in this case, since we don't have that, let's just go here and create a form. And here we're gonna say that's gonna be required. This is gonna save us some time. And here on submit. Okay. Now let's just create a method, submit, and let's just log here, hey. Now let's just bind this to some state. We're gonna call it title description. Now let's just go here and create a title, which is gonna be an empty string. Let's just do the same for description. And now we should ready. Let's just go here and console log data dot title. Oh, my bad, not data. And description. This is now that we have this, if we go back here, we should not see anything because we didn't import this. So let's just go here, and now that we've imported this, let's just add the Vue extension there. We have the components here, and now we should see our to do form. Okay. Oh, accidentally I removed the to do. Now that we have this, I forgot to add here. Okay, we should have something like this. So if we open the console, we can add this here, and what happened? It refreshed. The reason why is because here we need to add the prevent, and basically this will handle that behavior. We could get here the event and do event dot prevent default, basically, and I think with that it should be fixed. But Vue provides us with this handy modifier to get the same. So let's just go here, add, and boom, we've got the title, the description, and then this last console log. Okay, now that we've got this, let's just here, instead of submit, let's just go this dot emit new to do. And basically this is gonna be another method that is gonna call the emit on new to do. The way that you name the events is gonna be up to you, but just try to follow some convention. I've seen people doing the new dot to do, or in my case, in my company, we do it this way. So at the end of the day, just follow a convention and you'll be okay. I've seen that for Vue 3. So for example, for Vue 3, there's a specific rules that you have to follow in order to get some functionality. In that case, of course, you have to follow it. But in this case, you can go ahead and you'd use any convention that you feel like it. So this dot title, and then here description, this dot description. So we've got this on new to do. Now let's just go here in the app, and this is the way that we listen for an event and handle new to do. Now that we've got this, let me just create handle new to do, and then here to do list, we're gonna push new to do. So here it's complaining that this doesn't exist, so let's just create it real quick, and now we have a to-do list. Here, after doing that, let's just console log to-do list, and now we should be able to see, once we do this, we can go here inside and we can see that there's a title, description, and now what we can do is basically create our list. So let's just create a new component that's gonna be called to do list item. So now that we've got this, let's just have two spans. The first one is going to be a strong, and to do dot title, and the second one is going to be the same but without the strong, so it's going to be to do dot description. I want to have some padding or some margin basically, so let's just go with margin 0.20 pixels, and here let's just add a property props, and it's gonna be a to do. Whoops. It's gonna be type object, and in this case we don't want a default because we want to always require it. We're not gonna be using the default because we want always to require this, but if we wanted to, we would have to do something like this. This is the way to declare a default object, but in our case we don't want this. What we want is to require this and have it as true. Let's just go inside our app, and here let's just go to do list item to do, and it's gonna be a to do. But what we have to do here is do a for and to do in to do list, and we also have to provide the key, and that's going to be to do dot and some kind of identifier. In our case we don't have any. I've seen people using the index. I've also heard that that's not a very good practice, so what we're going to do is have a dot id, but we haven't created it yet. So let me just go back here inside the form, and let's just do id, which is gonna be basically some kind of random string. In our case, what we can do is get some interpolation. or string templating, and to do item or to do, and then here some math.random and some zeros, and that should be unique enough to get this working. So let me just go back, and now once we submit, we should see a list below. So let's just do this, and indeed we see a list. I want to add some padding here, so let me just add style margin top 20 pixels. Okay, now we have the title and the description. So now that we have this, the next step would be basically to have some kind of check here, some kind of check to check this to do. So that's what is missing. So let me just go back here and let's just add it. Is checked equals to false. Okay, now that we have this, we can go back to the to-do list item, and here have a checkbox, which is going to be an input type checkbox, and value is going to be to do dot is checked. Let's just make this is a shorthand for basically doing Vine. We can use it like this. That's the shorthand. Now we have the to do. So notice that I'm not using the V model, and the reason why is because it's good practice to divide our components between components that basically have all the logic and components that only show and at a most they emit events. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here. I've got all my logic over here, and I have some components that do some stuff and then emit events, and then I've got other components that the only thing that they should be doing is showing stuff but not changing it. Also, it's good practice to not change props. So in this case, I'm passing down to do to this to-do list, and I shouldn't be changing. So to basically fix this problem of not using the V model, what we can do directly with the prop, what we can do is use a computer property. In that case, we would be able to still access the V model, and here we could go with something like is checked. It's gonna be a computer property that's gonna contain two things. The first one, this we will have to make it an object, is gonna have a getter, which basically will return this dot to do dot is checked. Okay, and then we have a setter, and this is the one that's being called every single time that we make a change here. So let's just console log dot value, and now if we go back, we get here the true. Now what we can do here is that this dot emit on toggle to do, or we can call it something like on checked to do. Let's just go with this, and we're gonna pass the value. Then in the parent component, we're gonna be listening for this. So in this case, let me just format this real quick. It's gonna be something like that, and I like to have the same method but with an handle toggle is checked. Okay, now let me just go down here, and now we have the value, but we also need an ID. So in this case, we will have to do some destructuring, and then here get also the ID. So we have to go down inside the component, and instead of just passing here the value, we will have to do dot value, and since the variable name and the key name is the same, we can just remove this and have here, we will have to have the ID. So the to do and let's just grab the ID. With this we can identify this, and here we can just log it real quick, and we can see that the true, and then here the identifier. With this, let's just create a method to find any to-do list inside, or any to-do inside our to-do list, and it's gonna be this.to-do list dot find to do, and here to do dot id equals to id. And with this we can find a to do. Let's just call the method that we just created, and here to do, and console log this. Let's just go back, and now oops, I missed something there. And with this we can access the to do that we just checked, and now what we have to do is just to do dot is checked equals to the same, or just grab the value here. Now let's just refresh this, and this actually updated the value. So if we go here, let's just console log after making the change, to-do list, and we can see that is checked is true. Now let's, so just so you see that this is actually being done, we can see the here true, false, true, false. So that's actually working. That's great. Now let's just say that I wanted to edit this to do. How would I do this? So the way that I would approach this problem, it's basically have here some kind of button, and that says edit. Oops. This would look something like this, and what this would do is, let's just do on click toggle edit to do. Let's just make a method that does this, and what's gonna be doing is basically this dot emit on toggle edit to do. And what we have to do is just pass the ID. In this case, this dot to do dot ID. Now let's just go to the parent component, which is this one, and create a new event. And as I said, I like to have the same but with an handle. It keeps things simple. And now let's just grab the ID here, and now let's just console log. So once we have this, if we click here, we get the ID, which is great. Now we can do basically the same that we did here, but without using the is checked, and using is edit or edit mode. And since we didn't create this, we will have to do it now. So let's just go back here inside our to-do form, and edit mode is gonna start in false. So now here, let's just say that this is edit mode. We won't show this if it's edit mode. We will show a form. So let's go here, edit mode, and since we are not using this syntax, we can make this like a method and return to do. Now let's just create another parent div. Since this is Vue 2, we do need always a parent component that englobes, not a component but a node that englobes, that has all the other divs. So this is gonna be if this is not edit mode, but if it is, we want to show else, we want to show an edit form. So edit form, just for now, let's just have it like that. And we see here edit form, which is great. Now that we have this, what we want to have is like the same component, this one, but have it over here. So I've seen that in our company, the way that we would do this is basically have the to-do form. We just imported it. Let's just add the Vue extension here. Let's just refresh. Now we have this. We have the same to-do form, but the thing is that, so we don't have the values. So to get that, we can pass here the to-do, and also we are gonna pass another property that's called is edit mode. And since this is true, we don't need this. This is a shorthand of this. It's exactly the same. Now let's just go inside the to-do form and add these new two props that we just created. The first one, as I said, is going to be a to-do, and it's going to be type object, and is required would be false. But what we can do is just have a default, which is going to be something like this. And now let's just set is edit mode, which is going to be type boolean, and we have to define a default since I don't want to pass this all the time. So default is going to be false. Okay, now that we have this, so now that we have these props, we want to set these values with the new to do that we're passing, or the one that we are updating. So let's just go inside the created, and first of all we will check if this is edit mode, and if it is, we want to set the name, not the name, the title, to the this dot to do. And I remind you that's the one that we're passing down here as a prop. So let's just go to get the title, this dot description equals this dot to do dot description. And with this, then here let's just return, and here we don't want to do anything else. So let me refresh. Hey, and now when we click here the edit, you'll see that we do get the values. We still have here the add. I want to change this to something like update. So let me just go here, and since we know that if this is edit mode or not, let me just do some ternary operator here. You could do this inside something like a computer property, but in this case I'm just gonna do it like over here. If it's edit mode, it's gonna be save, and if it's not, it's gonna be add. Okay, and we can see here that we get that save that we just did. So now what I want to do is when I click this, I want to update the old one. So what we have to do here is, let's go to submit, and instead of creating a new one, we want to do something similar to this. So let me just copy, and if it's edit mode, we want to this.emit update to do. We want to update the old one. So let's just create this method. And it's gonna be very similar to this one. So we can actually copy paste most of this. And this title, description, the ID, we want to keep the old one, so we will have to grab it from the prop that we just created here. .todo.id is checked. We want to keep the old one, so let's just grab this, is checked. And is edit mode, we don't want to keep this in edit mode because we are submitting the newly updated version. And here on update to do. So now that we have this is being clicked or emitted. Let me just have here an alert, so just so you can see that this is actually happening. And if I click here save, we get this, and now it just triggered an event to the parent component. So let me just grab the event name. Let's just go here, and this is being triggered over here, to-do list, and this is being triggered over here. So let's just listen for on update, and and here what we have to do is some passing the event to the parent component, because we don't want to make changes over here. I would use something like Vuex in this case, in these kinds of apps, because that's what Vuex helps you to do, is basically to have a very global state that you can change anywhere in your app, and it makes easy, and you don't have to pass down props and then basically send them to the parent component like this. So let's just call it like the same, and we have here the updated to do, and the thing that we're gonna be doing is just emitting it to the parent without doing any change. So let me just copy the name on update to do, and then here we're just gonna pass it without doing any change. Let's just go to this one, and on this one let's just create a new method, and here we will make the changes. Handle update to do. So we have this. Now if everything works as expected, when I click this and when I save, I have this over here. So what we are going to be doing is a different approach. So here, to-do list, we're going to iterate over the to-do list dot for each to do, and if this dot if to do dot id equals to the updated to do dot id, we want to return the updated to do, otherwise just return to do. Some brackets there, and this goes over here. Now inside of a for each, let's go for a map, and this will return a new array with the newly updated to do inside of it without the old one. So let's just copy this and set it, and now this should work. If I go here, add, if I want to, let's say, just say that I want to change the title of this, I want to change this to something like this, and save, boom, it works. Let's just try it with this. Boom, it works. We can change this, and the checked is being saved, so that's great. Let's just go with something like 2, and we still have that. So here last thing that I want to do here, it's reset the values of the form once it's updated. So let me just go back here, and when the new one is done, which is over here, I want to have the this.title set to an empty string, and this.description set to an empty string. Now if I refresh this and I create, the values are being resetted, they're being changed back to an empty string, and here we have the to do, and that's great. And as we can see, we have that validation here, so we can basically have this. Now the last thing that we would need, it's the remove. So let me just go back here, and we want to have another button that says something like remove, and here remove to do. Let's just go back, scroll down here, remove to do, and it's gonna look very similar to this one. And on remove to do, we're passing the ID. That's the only thing that we need to make this happen. And here on remove to do, as I said, let's just call it handle remove to do. Create a new one, and ID, let's just console log this just so we see what's happening here. Remove, we do get the ID. So the only thing that's missing is basically doing some filtering. This dot to do list dot filter to do, and we don't even need 2 lines, so we can do something like this. I'm missing here an ID, and the returned value of this, we want to reassign it to the to-do list. Okay, so now if I did everything okay, this should remove it, and boom, we have it. So we have here the basic functionality of a CRUD application. So we can edit, so we can change any to do to any value that we want, we can save, and also we can remove. And just the cherry on top would be to have something like here, this is gonna be an a paragraph, to have all the ones that we just completed. And this is gonna be a computed property. So this dot to do list dot filter for each to do, we want to check is checked, and dot length, so we have 0 here, and boom, we have it. We can remove, and we can also edit any of the ones that we just did, and we can do it multiple at the same time. We can check, edit, and we keep the old values and if it's checked or not. Okay, so this is how I would approach a very simple to do CRUD application with Vue.js. I'm not using Vuex, I'm not using Vue Router, I'm not using any of those fancy things, even though those are not fancy. If you're building any kind of Vue application that's gonna be a single page application, you'll most likely need at least the Vue Router and most likely also the Vuex. But in this case, I just did it with very simple Vue methods, and these are the basics. And yeah, this is a very simple CRUD application. So if you guys want me to do any other kind of tutorial, just let me know in the comment section down below, and yeah, I'll be happy to do that. And yeah, this is a very simple app. This is how I would approach it. So yeah, let me know in the comment section down below, as I said. So yeah, see you in the next video.